What if I told you that the first president of the United States was offered the chance to become a king, and he said no, not once, but twice? This decision would shape the entire future of democracy as we know it. But here's what they don't teach you in school about George Washington. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the life of George Washington, and trust me, this isn't your boring history class lecture. We're talking about a man who survives assassination attempts, battles smallpox, fights grizzly bears. Okay, maybe not the bear part, but his real story is even more insane than the legends. So smash that like button and let's get into it. George Washington was born on February 22nd, 1732, in Westmoreland County, Virginia. But here's the thing, his family wasn't some mega rich dynasty. His father was Augustine Washington, a tobacco planter, and his mother was Mary Ball Washington. Now, Mary was known as one of the toughest women in Virginia. We're talking about a woman who ran a plantation, raised 6 kids, and reportedly never gave George a single compliment his entire life. Some historians think this made him constantly seek approval and achieve greatness. Dark origin story? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. When George was just 11 years old, his father died. This changed everything. While his older half brothers got to study in England, George had to stay home. No fancy education, no prestigious university. Everything Washington became, he built from scratch through pure determination and self-teaching. He became a land surveyor at 15, trekking through dangerous wilderness territories. Imagine being a teenager, camping in the wild frontier, surrounded by potential danger, mapping out unknown land. That's hardcore. At 22 years old, Washington gets thrown into the deep end. Virginia sends him on a diplomatic mission to tell French forces to leave the Ohio Valley. They say no. What happens next? The French and Indian War explodes, and Washington is right in the middle of it. Here's where it gets wild. During the Battle of Monongahela in 1755, Washington has 2 horses shot out from under him, and 4 bullets tear through his coat. 4 bullets, and he walks away without a scratch. An Indian chief later said he ordered his warriors to specifically target Washington during the battle. But after all those shots missed, he believed Washington was protected by the Great Spirit and couldn't be killed. Imagine being so legendary that your enemies think you're invincible. But Washington also learned hard lessons. He saw how British officers treated colonial soldiers like second-class citizens. He watched as rigid European military tactics failed in American wilderness warfare. These experiences would prove crucial years later. After the war, Washington returns to Virginia and becomes a planter. He marries Martha Custis, a wealthy widow, in 1759. This isn't just a love story, it's a power move. Martha brings massive wealth and social connections. Together, they transform Mount Vernon into one of the most successful plantations in Virginia. But here's what makes Washington different from other plantation owners. The guy was obsessed with innovation. He experimented with crop rotation, bred special mules, even created his own brand of whiskey. He wasn't content just maintaining wealth, he wanted to revolutionize agriculture. This innovative thinking would later help him revolutionize warfare and government. By the 1770s, tensions with Britain are exploding. The Stamp Act, the Boston Massacre, the Tea Party. Washington sees what's happening and realizes that peaceful reconciliation might be impossible. When the Continental Congress needs to choose a commander for the Continental Army in 1775, they pick Washington. Why? He showed up to Congress in his military uniform. Sometimes presentation is everything. Now, let's be real. Washington faced an impossible situation. He's commanding an army of farmers and merchants against the most powerful military on earth. The British had professional soldiers, the best navy in the world, and unlimited resources. Washington had soldiers without shoes marching through snow, leaving bloody footprints. No money, no supplies, soldiers deserting constantly. But Washington had something the British didn't: adaptability. Remember those lessons from the French and Indian War? He used them. Guerrilla tactics, strategic retreats, hit and run operations. He avoided major battles he couldn't win and struck when the enemy was vulnerable. The crossing of the Delaware River on Christmas night, 1776, legendary. Washington's army is falling apart. They're losing battles. Morale is destroyed. Congress is about to give up. So, what does Washington do? He leads 2,400 men across an icy river in the middle of the night during a snowstorm to launch a surprise attack on Hessian mercenaries in Trenton. It's insane. It's reckless. And it works. This victory revitalizes the entire revolution. Then comes Valley Forge in the winter of 1777 to 78. This is where legends are forged, literally. Washington's army is starving, freezing, dying of disease. About 2,500 soldiers die that winter. But Washington stays with his men. He could have gone somewhere comfortable, but he endures the same hardships. This creates unbreakable loyalty. When spring comes, the army that emerges from Valley Forge is transformed, professional, disciplined, and ready to win. The Siege of Yorktown in 1781 ends it all. With help from the French Navy and Army, Washington traps British General Cornwallis. When the British surrender, Washington becomes the man who defeated the greatest empire on earth. Here's where Washington does something no military leader in history had done before. He gives up power. Officers in his army literally suggest he should become king. They even have a plan. Washington could seize control. He has the army's loyalty. He has the people's love. He could have anything. And Washington says, no. He resigns his commission and goes home to Mount Vernon. King George III hears about this and says, if he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world. Even his enemies recognized how extraordinary this was. Throughout history, military leaders who win revolutions become dictators. Napoleon, Cromwell, countless others. Washington walked away. This set a precedent that would define American democracy forever. The peaceful transfer of power. The idea that leaders serve temporarily and then return to being citizens. Revolutionary doesn't even begin to describe it. But America needs Washington again. The Articles of Confederation are failing. The nation is falling apart. In 1787, Washington presides over the Constitutional Convention. Then, in 1789, he's unanimously elected as the first president of the United States. Unanimously. Every single electoral vote. That's never happened since. As president, Washington basically invents the job. There's no playbook. He has to figure out everything. How should people address the president? What powers should the office have? How do you build a functional government from nothing? Every decision becomes a precedent for every future president. He establishes the cabinet system. He creates the principle of presidential neutrality in foreign conflicts. He sets the two-term limit that would become tradition for 150 years. He navigates conflicts between Jefferson and Hamilton, keeping the young nation from tearing itself apart. He deals with the Whiskey Rebellion, proving the federal government can enforce laws without becoming tyrannical. Washington serves 2 terms and then, once again, voluntarily gives up power in 1797. His farewell address warns against political parties, foreign entanglements, and sectionalism. Americans ignored almost all of this advice, but the warning was profound. George Washington died on December 14, 1799, at Mount Vernon. The cause? Probably a throat infection, though doctors didn't help by draining about half his blood in attempted treatments. Not the heroic end a legend deserves, but it was quick. So, what's Washington's real legacy? It's not just military victories or political achievements, it's the precedent of restraint. In an era when power hungry leaders were the norm, Washington showed that true greatness comes from knowing when to step back. He could have been a king, a dictator, a president for life. Instead, he chose to be a citizen. His face is on the dollar bill, the quarter, and a mountain. There's a state, a capital city, monuments, and countless schools named after him. But the real monument is the American system itself, a democracy that has survived for over 2 centuries because one man established that power belongs to the people, not to any individual. That's the story of George Washington. Not a perfect man, but maybe the most important leader in American history. Not because he was the best general or the best president, but because he understood something fundamental about power. The greatest thing you can do with it is give it away. What do you think? Could modern leaders learn from Washington's example? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe because we've got more incredible historical deep dives coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.